I feel so bad for detransitioners, for the people who regret going through a medical gender transition. Not only do they have to deal with the side effects due to cross-sex hormones, some have to live without their breasts, testicles, penis, uterus, and ovaries. No words can describe how tragic that is. Detransitioners are now starting to not only blame the doctors who did this to them, but they're also suing the doctors and the therapists, and I think it's amazing. No matter how old you are, if you're mentally ill, if you really struggle with your mental health, you seek help at clinics where medical professionals are hired in order to help you, but they don't, even though in theory they could help you, then they are the ones to blame. You could have been 50. It does not matter. You have the right not to be wrongfully treated by the system. Detransitioners already have to deal with the side effects due to the physical transition, the psychological and emotional side effects. They unfortunately have to deal with a lot of hate coming from the trans community. If a person regrets their transition and say, I wasn't actually trans, I thought I was, but I wasn't, the community will consider that person a traitor, someone who left the cult.
It is difficult when you realize that you need to detransition for a variety of strong reasons, and then the community you are part of rejects you.
Why does seeing a detrans person on your feed put you into an immediate fight or flight response? Think about that for a minute. Because I feel like I don't even have a chance with some of you guys. As soon as I open my mouth, you're going to assume that I'm a TERF and not listen to what I have to say.
My friends all turned against me because I was evidence that their beliefs were a lie. I was a joke. I was a fraud. I was many years behind in development, incapable of feeding my future children, and worst of all, completely alone.
I feel like I have to, that it's my responsibility as a trans person who's outspoken to also highlight detrans stories. Why? Because all the trans people that you see on the internet just shit on them.
Can someone please explain to me why I'm getting videos of detransitioners all over my For You page now? Like, where are y'all coming from? Oh my god, I'm just so surprised that I have male pattern baldness. I thought I wouldn't get it even though my brother has it, and my dad has it, and my uncle has it. Like, please. I'm glad you're happy, but be fucking for real.
They just hate on them. And I think the reason is that these people are just really insecure about their own transition. But guess what? I'm not. I'm highlighting detrans stories and constantly talking about them because they matter.
We don't need a thesis and a mini docuseries as to why you decided to detransition. Just go about your life.
We have heard enough about the people like me. We've seen so many documentaries about trans people who are finally happy in their own skin. People get it. What people don't get is how children are going through this, even though they can't consent, and most of them end up regretting it later in life. What people don't get is how corrupt the system is, and how the system is hurting so many people. I cannot sit back and relax, live my happy trans life, when I see so many people who've gone through the same as me, who are not happy, and who are devastated, being shit on, lied about.
Oh my god, so I started taking testosterone like 6 million years ago and went ahead and got all the surgeries. I didn't realize that would make me a man, and I'm pissed about it, so I'm detransitioning. I hate trans people.
The way that so many people who detransition spin it as though transitioning ruined their lives somehow, as if somebody forced them to transition.
The most common argument you hear within the trans community when it comes to detransitioners is, well, it's not a lot of people who detransition. Excuse me? How many people, according to you, do you want to see regret their transitions before you think it's a problem? 100,000 people? 500,000 people? 1,000,000? How many people worldwide do you want to see mess up their own lives or get their lives messed up by medical professionals? How many?
I still struggle with internalized homophobia, and I think I lost my penis to internalized homophobia. I literally did. I felt like I was thinking to myself, like, what am I and what are my best options? I want some kind of functional gender. Society expected me as a man to wear certain things or act certain way, and I checked out of masculinity because I just felt like all other men were so masculine that I could never measure up. And the closest point of comparison were women. You know, I felt like I was as feminine naturally as they were, my mannerisms.
At what age did you start on testosterone?
I had just turned 18. Although I did socially transition officially from like 18, I felt like in my identity, I felt as a man when I was 17. That's when it seriously started. The surgery was really tough. I had my initial surgery, and then the same night I had complications. So I was rushed into the emergency for another surgery that same day. The recovery was a little bit longer than expected because of the complication. Once it was healed, I was happy.
So after your recovery, when did you start to realize that maybe the transition is not the right thing for you?
23, I would say, that's when it started to like settle in for real. I think a big part of this was at age 20, I started to explore my sexuality for the first time ever. I didn't have any sort of experience before that. As the years went by and as more I explored, I started feeling weird about it. Like, why don't I have urinary dysphoria over this or that?
At 13 years old, on the advice of so-called medical professionals, I was put on puberty-blocking medication, and only a month later, I was given my first testosterone injection. The gender clinic presented my parents with the classic false dichotomy regarding children with gender dysphoria. Would you rather have a dead daughter or a living son? My parents were prepared to sign anything the doctors asked. This was not informed consent. It was a decision forced under extreme duress. At 15, I went under the knife for a radical double mastectomy, the kind that breast cancer patients get. I realized after maturing a bit more that a child does not in fact know who they are. At 12 years old, I realized that I wanted to be what I always was and forever will be, a woman.
I started testosterone at 13 in the state of Arizona. To get to that point, I went through 9 months of gender therapy, which I do not believe was long enough. The reason why I was able to be fast-tracked through it so quickly was because I had wealthy parents that were liberal. There is no other reason, nothing special I did or things I said or whatever. The only reason why I was able to get testosterone so young was because I had liberal, wealthy parents. When I say my lived experience isn't cis, it's because I don't have memories of girlhood. Not really. I mean, I started transitioning at 12. I have trauma associated with lots of things in my life, which is known to cause memory loss and memory issues. So I honestly can't sit here and tell you, oh yes, I was gender nonconforming and that's why I transitioned, or oh yes, I had a complicated relationship with gender, because I don't know how I was feeling or what I was thinking or what I said, what I did. I have no idea. So there are several things that probably played a role in my decision to transition. Trauma probably played a role in my transition. Dissociation probably played a role in my transition. Body image issues, the inherent disconnect from society and womanhood that you feel as a lesbian, and the inherent disconnect from others that you feel as an autistic.
If I would say something to young trans people today, it would be that I was once just as sure as they are. You need time and you need to be open-minded and sort of dare to think about outside of the gender dysphoria box. It's easy to get stuck in there and just think that the hormones and surgery is the only way. I think the studies are very off. It doesn't really reflect on reality. I think these sisters are not a part of the studies, for example. These sisters are very important to understand how gender dysphoria sort of goes away. You know, the cues to getting into the trans care, they're very long, and during that time anything can happen, like your gender dysphoria going away.
Sometimes medical transition works as a placebo for a while, but those mental health issues keep on resurfacing, and eventually people have to deal with it. And at this point, any child that comes with gender issues has to have a deep psychological evaluation before given any kind of medical treatment. Even young adults, they should really be checked for childhood trauma, for borderline, for all those things. But unfortunately right now the narrative is all those things are separate from being trans, and oftentimes people lose years not working on those issues because they keep on putting all the efforts and resources into medical transition to look a certain way to pass, versus working on their mental issues and becoming maybe better.
Believe it or not, you can't really compare a gender transition to body modifications. You have the personal right to modify your body however you want, but you don't have the right to pick out your own medicine to treat your mental disorders. You don't. And you should not have the right to, because you're not a professional.
A lot of times now, being part of the transitioner community, we do have a lot of underlying issues. Some of us have a lot of medical trauma due to medical transition. We need support. They just want us to go away, but they just can no longer ignore us because numbers of the transitioners are growing because there were no safeguards, no gatekeeping, and this is the result. This is what you get. If anybody can be trans, this is what you get.
We put so much pressure on people who are struggling with their mental health to treat their own mental health issues instead of expecting doctors, therapists who have degrees to treat their patients. For some immoral or ideological reasons, it's the mentally unstable person who needs to fix themselves, even though they are already confused and struggle a lot. I think a lot of detransitioners are beautiful, inside and out. And it kills me to see so many people hate on them for no reason. I lose a little bit faith in humanity when I see the hate detransitioners get. I think that evil people do exist. I of course believe that narcissistic people exist, and I believe there are a lot of them within the trans movement.